The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers caught the light from 100 angles, scattering rainbow fragments across faces that had once looked through Jennifer Hart like she was invisible. Tonight, every eye in the room was on her. She wore midnight blue silk, the kind that whispered money in a language everyone understood. Her twins flanked her, 5 years old and dressed like the royalty they were. Maya's small hand squeezed her mother's. The perceptive little girl could sense the tension radiating from Jennifer's body. Across the room, Marcus Sullivan's face drained of colour. He froze mid-laugh, champagne glass suspended in air, his mouth forming a perfect O of shock. His new wife, Victoria, the elegant architect he'd married 2 years ago, touched his arm, confused by his sudden paralysis. The CEO of Sullivan and Associates had just spotted a ghost.
Jennifer's hands trembled. She'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in her bathroom mirror, rehearsed the confident smile, the steady gaze. But standing here, surrounded by the smell of expensive cologne and the soft clink of crystal, she felt 23 again, small, disposable. No, she told herself, you earned this floor. You paid for every inch of ground you stand on. Her lawyer, Patricia Chen, stood beside her with a manila folder that weighed practically nothing, but contained everything. In exactly 12 minutes, she would hand it to Marcus in front of 300 of Seattle's business elite, his board members, his investors, and the wife who had no idea she was married to a fraud.
"Mummy, is that the bad man?" Ethan whispered, too loudly. Several heads turned. Jennifer's stomach clenched. She told herself bringing the children was about claiming her truth. But was it? Or was she using them as weapons the same way Marcus had once used money? She pushed the thought away. "That's the silly man who made the best mistake of his life," she whispered back. "Because if he hadn't been so silly, I wouldn't have you and your sister." But even as she said it, the words felt rehearsed, hollow. To understand how Jennifer Hart arrived at this moment of reckoning and the choice that would define who she truly was, we need to go back. Back to 6 years ago when she was 23 years old and believed that love could survive on hope alone. Jennifer Hart met Marcus Sullivan in the library at Washington State University. He was everything she wasn't, confident, connected, from a family whose name opened doors she didn't know existed. She was a scholarship kid from Spokane, working 3 part-time jobs to keep herself fed and enrolled. What she didn't know then was that Marcus was also everything he pretended not to be, terrified, trapped, desperately trying to outrun his father's shadow.
He chose her. That's what it felt like to Jennifer. Out of all the girls in their economics cohort, he chose the one with second-hand textbooks and coffee-stained notes. "You're brilliant," he told her on their 3rd date, his fingers tracing patterns on her palm. "My mother is going to love you." She didn't. But that revelation would come later. What Jennifer didn't see, couldn't see, was how Marcus looked at her when she talked about her dreams of building something from nothing. There was hunger in his eyes, but also something else. Fear. Of her ambition. Of what it revealed about his own lack of it. They dated through senior year. Marcus graduated summa cum laude and immediately joined his father's commercial real estate firm. Jennifer graduated with honours and a pile of debt, landing a junior analyst position at a small financial consulting firm. They moved into his apartment in downtown Seattle, a place she could never have afforded, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the city look like a jewelry box. "This is ours now," he said, pulling her close on that first night. The skyline glittered behind him.
Everything I have, we share. She believed him. God, she believed everything. But late at night, when he thought she was sleeping, Marcus would stare at the ceiling with an expression she couldn't name. Sometimes he'd get up and stand at those floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the city like a man contemplating a jump. She asked him about it once. "Just work stress," he said. "Dad's pushing hard for the Henderson deal." She accepted that. She shouldn't have. They talked about marriage the way other people talk about grocery lists. Casual, inevitable, assumed. His mother, Constance Sullivan, tolerated Jennifer with the kind of politeness that felt like a knife you couldn't see. His father barely acknowledged her existence. But Marcus said it didn't matter. "They'll come around when they see how happy we are," he promised. What he didn't say, his father had already made it clear that a Sullivan didn't marry scholarship girls from Spokane. What he didn't say, the trust fund, the inheritance, the corner office, all of it was conditional. What he didn't say, he was a coward. Jennifer found out she was pregnant on a Tuesday, March 17th. She would remember it forever because it was St. Patrick's Day, and the clinic waiting room had shamrock decorations that seemed obscenely cheerful. The nurse practitioner smiled when she delivered the news. "Congratulations! Based on your HCG levels, we'd like to do an ultrasound. They're unusually high for how far along you are." Twins. 2 heartbeats flickering on the grainy screen like Morse code spelling out forever. Jennifer couldn't stop smiling during the drive home. Marcus had always said he wanted kids eventually. This was earlier than planned, sure, but they were stable, happy, in love. She was so busy imagining the future that she didn't notice the present, didn't notice that Marcus had been distant for weeks, that his calls to his father had grown longer and more heated, that he'd started drinking whiskey alone after she went to bed. The apartment was dark when she got home at 6. She made his favourite meal, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. She set the table with the good plates, the ones his mother had given them with thinly veiled judgment. She lit candles. Marcus came home at 8, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. His eyes were red. He smelled faintly of scotch. "Hey, babe, sorry I'm late. Dad had me on calls all afternoon." He kissed her forehead absently, the kind of kiss you give someone when your mind is elsewhere. "What's all this?" Jennifer's hands shook as she handed him the envelope. Inside were the ultrasound photos, the ones where if you squinted you could almost make out 2 tiny beings that were somehow simultaneously impossible and inevitable. Marcus stared at those photos for 30 seconds, maybe 45. The salmon was getting cold. His hands were shaking too. She noticed that. Later she would remember it and wonder. "You're pregnant?" Not a question. A statement delivered in a voice she didn't recognize, flat, distant, like a man reading his own death sentence. "Yes, with twins, Marcus, can you believe it? I know it's sooner than we planned, but we need to talk." He set the photos down on the table, not gently. One slid onto the floor. He stared at it for a long moment before looking away. "Sit down, Jen." The way he said her name made her stomach drop. She'd heard that tone before. He used it with incompetent vendors, with the parking attendant who'd scratched his BMW. Never with her. Jennifer sat. The candles flickered between them like a jury. "I can't do this," Marcus said. Just like that. 6 words that rewrote her entire existence. "Can't do what? Be a father? Marcus, I know it's scary, but we'll figure it out together." "No." He cut her off, but his voice cracked on the word. He stood up, moving to the window, his back to her. "There is no we in this. I'm not ready to be tied down with kids. Hell, I'm not sure I'm ready to be tied down with you." The room tilted.
What are you talking about? We've been together for 3 years. You said... I said a lot of things. Still not looking at her. His shoulders were rigid. Look, Jennifer, you're a nice girl. You're smart. But let's be realistic here. My family is building an empire. I need a wife who can navigate those circles, who brings something to the table besides student loans and a working-class background. Each word was a scalpel, precise, intentional, designed to cut. But something was wrong with the surgery. His reflection in the window, she could see it just barely. His face was twisted, not with cruelty, with something else. Pain. You used me. Her voice sounded strange, small. For sex, for companionship. And now that there are consequences... Consequences? He spun around, and for just a second she saw it, the terror beneath the mask. Then it was gone, buried under something that looked like anger, but felt like armor. Don't be dramatic. You have options. Take care of it. I'll pay for the procedure. Consider it my contribution. I'm not getting rid of our babies. Then they're your babies. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. His hands were still shaking. I want you out by Friday. The lease is in my name. So is everything else, if you haven't noticed. Marcus, please. Jennifer stood up so fast the chair fell backward. Just talk to me. We can work this out. I love you. He paused at the door. For a second, just 1 second, his whole body seemed to sag. She saw the boy beneath the man, the one who'd told her once, drunk on their anniversary, that he'd never felt good enough for his father, that sometimes he felt like he was just playing a role in someone else's play. Marcus, she said softly, what did your father say to you? His jaw tightened. The vulnerability vanished. I'll have my attorney draw up papers. You'll sign them stating I have no parental or financial responsibility. In exchange, I won't pursue you for back rent or utilities you couldn't afford anyway. You can't do that. They're your children. Prove it. He opened the door. And Jennifer? This conversation never happened. If you try to contact me, my family, or anyone associated with Sullivan and Associates, I'll bury you in legal fees you can't afford. Do you understand? She didn't answer, couldn't. The door clicked shut. That small sound, so ordinary, so final, echoed in the empty apartment that had never really been hers. Jennifer stood there for what might have been minutes or hours, hand on her swelling belly, trying to comprehend how the man who'd whispered forever into her ear just 6 weeks ago could walk away from his own children as if she, had never existed. But even through her shock, a question nagged at her. What did his father say? The candles burned down to nothing. The salmon went cold. One of the ultrasound photos was still on the floor, a tiny shoe print from Marcus's Italian leather Oxford marking the corner. She picked it up, smoothed the crease, and made herself a promise. She would survive this. But she would also remember that something was broken in Marcus Sullivan. Not to excuse him, never to excuse him, but to understand that monsters are made, not born. That night, Jennifer Hart learned what rock bottom tastes like. Metallic, like pennies and panic. Friday came. Marcus was true to his word in the cruelest possible way. Jennifer packed everything she owned into 4 suitcases and 2 garbage bags. It wasn't much. Most of the furniture was his, the dishes, the linens, the coffee maker, all his. She took her clothes, her laptop, her books, and the shame that weighed more than everything else combined.
She had $843 in her checking account. Her studio apartment from before Marcus had long since been rented to someone else. Her parents were dead, a car accident when she was 19, the grief of which Marcus had seen her through. At the time, she'd thought it meant something. Now she understood it had just been convenient. A girlfriend with no family meant no one to ask difficult questions. Or, a small voice whispered, maybe he genuinely loved you then. Maybe people can love you and still hurt you.
She pushed the voice away. It was easier to hate him. She called her friend Rachel. They'd been roommates freshman year before Rachel had transferred to Colorado.
Jen! Oh my God, I haven't heard from you in forever. How's life with Mr. Perfect?
Jennifer couldn't speak for a solid 10 seconds. Then it all came pouring out. The pregnancy, the abandonment, the Friday deadline.
That absolute piece of...
Rachel's fury was immediate and sincere.
Jen, I'm in Boulder. I wish I could help, but I'm literally crashing on my boyfriend's couch right now. Do you have anywhere else? It's okay, Jennifer lied. I'll figure something out.
She tried 3 homeless shelters, all full. Tried 2 women's crisis centers, waitlisted. That first night, Jennifer slept in her car, a 2004 Honda Civic with a broken air conditioner and a passenger door that only opened from the outside. She parked in a 24-hour grocery store lot in Renton, far enough from downtown Seattle that she wouldn't see anyone she knew. The second night, she did the same. By the third night, her back was screaming from the cramped position, her bladder was staging a rebellion, and the morning sickness that had been manageable before was now accompanied by the special misery of having no private bathroom to be sick in. She used the grocery store restroom to wash her face, brush her teeth, and cry where no one could see her. Her savings dwindled. Gas to keep the car running, food from the dollar menu, a gym membership, the cheapest insurance policy for daily showers. Jennifer kept going to work. Every morning she'd change in the gym bathroom, apply makeup to hide the exhaustion, and walk into that office like her life wasn't collapsing. On day 8, her supervisor called her into his office. "Jennifer, is everything okay? You've seemed distracted lately." She almost told him, almost let it all spill out. But she could see it in his eyes, the calculation, the budget meetings they'd been having, the whispers about downsizing. "I'm fine," she said. "Just a minor personal issue. It won't affect my work." He nodded, unconvinced. 3 days later, she was laid off. Budget restructuring, they called it. They gave her 2 weeks severance and a cardboard box for her desk supplies. Week 3, the car died. She was driving to a job interview when the engine made a sound like a dying animal and simply stopped. Smoke poured from under the hood. A mechanic quoted her $1,500 for repairs. She had $312 left. Jennifer sold the car for scrap. $200. Then she was fully, completely homeless. The shelter finally had space. Mary's Grace House, a converted church in the Central District that smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Jennifer got a bed in a room with 7 other women. They had lockers for their belongings and rules posted on every wall. No drugs, no alcohol, no men. Curfew at 9 p.m., out by 7 a.m., no exceptions. The women there taught Jennifer things she'd never needed to know before. Where the free lunch programs were, which soup kitchens served the best food, how to layer clothes against the cold, which streets to avoid after dark. But they also taught her harder lessons, that kindness in desperate places sometimes comes with strings, that women could be cruel to each other when resources were scarce, that rock bottom had levels.
A woman named Carmen, 60 years old with gaps in her smile and a scar running from her ear to her jaw, took the pregnant girl under her wing. "How far along?" she asked the first night, nodding at Jennifer's stomach. 14 weeks, twins. Carmen whistled low. "You got people?" "No one." She nodded like this was the most natural thing in the world. "You got me now, and you got those babies. That's enough to fight for." Jennifer wanted to believe her, but that night, lying in her narrow cot, surrounded by the sounds of 7 other women breathing, coughing, crying, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. Rage. Not at Marcus, not at the world, at herself. Why didn't you save more money? Why didn't you keep your own apartment? Why did you trust him with everything? The rage was clarifying. It burned away the self-pity and left something harder in its place. But rage, she would learn, was a double-edged sword. It could save you. It could also consume you. The pregnancy was brutal. At 20 weeks, Jennifer developed preeclampsia. The free clinic doctor, a tired-looking woman named Dr. Santos, told her she needed bed rest and careful monitoring. "You're at high risk for preterm labor," she said, her face serious. "You need to reduce stress, eat properly, and come in weekly for checkups." Jennifer laughed, actually laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. "I'm homeless," she told the doctor. "I'm applying to jobs every day. Stress reduction isn't exactly an option." Dr. Santos was quiet for a moment. Then, "Wait here." She came back 20 minutes later with a business card. "This is my friend Patricia Chen. She's a lawyer who does pro bono work for women in crisis. She helped my sister when she needed to get child support from a deadbeat ex. Just call her. Please." Jennifer tucked the card into her pocket, not believing for a second that it would lead anywhere. Rich lawyers didn't help homeless pregnant girls. That wasn't how the world worked. But when you're drowning, you grab at anything that floats. She called Patricia from a borrowed phone. The lawyer answered on the second ring. "Patricia Chen?" "Hi, Dr. Santos gave me your number. I don't know if she told you, but she told me." Patricia's voice was crisp, but not unkind. "Jennifer, right? The father abandoned you when you told him about the pregnancy?" "Yes." "And threatened legal action if you pursued child support?" "Yes." "Did you sign anything?" "No. He wanted me to, but I left before." "Good. Don't sign anything. Can you meet me tomorrow at 1 p.m? There's a coffee shop on Pike Street near the public library. I'll buy you lunch and we'll talk." Patricia Chen was 42, 5 feet tall, and had the energy of someone who'd spent their entire life fighting battles other people were too tired to fight. She wore power suits like armor, and had a smile that could cut glass. But she also had shadows under her eyes, and a wedding ring she kept twisting on her finger. She bought Jennifer a sandwich, a soup, and a hot chocolate, while the young woman told her everything. Patricia took notes on a legal pad, her expression never changing from professional neutrality. When Jennifer finished, Patricia set down her pen. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "First, we're going to file for emergency support and healthcare coverage. Washington State doesn't mess around with deadbeat parents, no matter how rich they are. Second, we're going to establish paternity the moment those babies are born. Third, we're going to make sure Marcus Sullivan pays for every dollar of medical care, every late-night feeding, every single thing those children need. He'll bury me in legal fees," he said. "He said a lot of things to scare you. I say different things."
Patricia leaned forward. But I need you to understand something, Jennifer. This is going to be hard. Not just the legal battle, the aftermath. Once we establish paternity, he'll be in your life forever, in your children's lives. Is that what you want? Jennifer hadn't thought about that. She'd been so focused on survival that she hadn't considered the long game. I don't know, she admitted. That's honest. I appreciate honest. Patricia took a sip of her coffee. Let me tell you something about myself. My mother was 17 when my father's family paid her to disappear. She raised me alone in a studio apartment in San Francisco while working 2 jobs. I became a lawyer because women like her, like you, deserve someone who'll fight when they're too tired to fight for themselves. She paused. But I also spent 20 years hating my father, obsessing over him, tracking his life, his other family, his success. And when I finally confronted him, I was 35. You know what I found? What? A broken old man who'd spent his whole life regretting the choice his parents made for him. He'd looked for us, Jennifer, for years. His family had hidden us so completely that he couldn't find us. The hatred I'd carried, it was based on a story that wasn't entirely true. Jennifer's chest tightened. Are you saying I should forgive Marcus? No, God no. I'm saying you should know what you're fighting for. Justice, money, revenge. All of those are valid. But be honest with yourself about which one it is. For the first time in weeks, Jennifer felt something other than rage or despair. Uncertainty. The legal wheels started turning slowly, then faster. Patricia filed for emergency assistance. She documented everything: Marcus's abandonment, his threats, the fact that he had essentially left Jennifer homeless and destitute while pregnant with his children. Marcus's lawyers responded with fury wrapped in legalese. They denied everything, claimed Jennifer had been a casual fling who'd gotten overly attached, suggested she couldn't prove paternity, implied she was trying to trap a wealthy man. But between the legal filings, something unexpected happened. Marcus called. Jennifer almost didn't answer the unknown number, but something made her pick up. Jen? His voice was rough, like he hadn't been sleeping. Don't hang up, please. She didn't hang up. She should have. But she didn't. I can't do this over the phone, he said. Can we meet? Somewhere public, just to talk? My lawyer said... I know what your lawyer said. I'm not asking you to sign anything. I'm not threatening anything. His voice broke. I just need you to understand. Against every rational instinct, she agreed. They met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, neutral territory. Jennifer brought Carmen, who sat 3 tables away pretending to read a newspaper. Marcus looked terrible. He'd lost weight. His eyes were bloodshot. His expensive suit hung on him like borrowed clothes. Thank you for coming, he said. I don't know why I did. He nodded, accepting that. I need to tell you something. It doesn't excuse anything, but you deserve to know. He took a breath, then another. The night you told me about the pregnancy, I'd spent 3 hours on the phone with my father. He'd found out about you, about us. Someone at the company saw you at my apartment, mentioned the live-in girlfriend to my mother. Marcus's hands were shaking around his coffee cup. He gave me an ultimatum. End it or lose everything. The trust fund, the inheritance, my position at the company, everything. Jennifer stared at him. So you chose money over your own children? Yes. He didn't try to defend it. I chose money. I chose safety. I chose the path that didn't require me to be brave.
He looked at her then, and she saw it again, the broken boy behind the polished man. I've been choosing that path my whole life, Jen. I don't know how to be brave. I never learned. That's not an excuse. I know. You hurt me. You could have killed our babies with the stress.
I know. Tears were sliding down his face now. I wake up every night thinking about it. Where you are, if you're eating, if they're okay. We're homeless, Marcus. I'm sleeping in a shelter, so no, we're not okay. He flinched like she'd hit him. I could send money, quietly. My father doesn't have to know. No. Jennifer stood up. You don't get to do this halfway. You don't get to salve your conscience with secret checks while publicly pretending we don't exist. Either you're their father or you're not. There's no middle ground. She walked away. Carmen caught up with her outside. You okay, Mija? No. Jennifer wiped her eyes angrily. He's pathetic. He's weak. And I almost felt sorry for him. Feeling sorry for someone doesn't mean you forgive them, Carmen said quietly. It means you're human. Jennifer didn't respond. But that night, lying in her shelter cot, she couldn't stop thinking about what Marcus had said. I don't know how to be brave. I never learned. She hated that she understood exactly what he meant. At 32 weeks, her water broke. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and panic. Dr. Santos met her at the hospital, her face grim. Jennifer, the babies are in distress. We need to deliver now. Emergency C-section. Carmen burst through the doors, unauthorized and unstoppable. I'm her sister. The surgery took 43 minutes. Then, a cry, high-pitched and angry. It's a girl! Another cry, seconds later. And a boy! 3 pounds 4 ounces, 3 pounds 7 ounces. Small but fierce. The twins were whisked away to the NICU before Jennifer could even touch them. 42 days. That's how long Maya and Ethan fought for their lives. Jennifer lived in that NICU. She pumped breast milk every 3 hours. She talked to them through the incubator glass. She memorized every beep of every monitor. On day 15, Patricia visited with news. Marcus's lawyers made contact, she said carefully. He wants to see them. Jennifer's first instinct was rage. Absolutely not. That's your right. But Jennifer, he's their father. Legally. Eventually, he may have rights too. He gave up those rights when he abandoned us. That's not how the law works. Not if he contests it. Patricia sat down beside her. I'm not saying you should let him in. I'm saying you should think about what's best for those children in the long run. Sometimes that means making choices we don't want to make. What would you do? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. When I was 35, I went to see my father, the one who'd abandoned my mother. I went to scream at him, to tell him what he'd done to us. And instead, she shook her head. Instead, I found a broken man who'd been looking for us his whole life, who'd been lied to by his family, who'd never stopped loving the woman they'd forced him to leave. Marcus isn't that man. Maybe not. But maybe he could be. Or maybe he can't. Either way, those babies in there will someday ask about their father. What do you want the answer to be? Jennifer looked through the NICU glass at her children. Maya's tiny hand was wrapped around a nurse's finger. Ethan's chest rose and fell with mechanical assistance. I want the answer to be the truth, she said finally. Whatever that turns out to be. Marcus came on day 23. Jennifer didn't want him there. But she allowed it, supervised with Carmen and Patricia present, for exactly 15 minutes. He stood at the incubator window, silent. Tears ran down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. "They're so small," he whispered. "They're fighters," Jennifer said. "No thanks to you." He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't make excuses. "I told my father," he said quietly. "About them, about you, about everything." Jennifer stared at him. "You what?" "He disowned me. Officially. As of yesterday, I'm no longer a Sullivan in any way that matters." Marcus laughed bitterly. 30 years of doing everything he wanted, and it took losing them to make me realize none of it mattered. "You expect me to feel sorry for you? No. I expect nothing from you. He turned to face her. "I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. Finally. Too late, but trying." He left without asking for anything. Didn't try to touch the babies, didn't ask to come back. Jennifer didn't know what to do with that. The twins came home on day 42. Home to the subsidized apartment Patricia had helped Jennifer secure. 2 bedrooms, barely enough space, morning light through thin curtains. It was everything. The first month was survival. Jennifer slept in 90-minute increments. She breastfed constantly. She cried in the shower when the babies were finally both asleep. Carmen came every day. Patricia came every week. Dr. Santos made house calls when Jennifer couldn't afford transportation. And slowly, something like a life emerged. Jennifer started a blog on a whim. She had to do something during the 3 a.m. feedings, and writing had always helped her think. Unwanted but not unworthy, a single mother's journey. She wrote honestly about the exhaustion, about the rage, about the fear that never quite went away, about the days when she wasn't sure she could keep going, and about Marcus. This was the part that surprised her. She found herself writing about him with more complexity than she'd expected. Not forgiveness, never forgiveness, but something like understanding. "He was a coward," she wrote. "But I'm starting to think cowardice isn't a fixed state. It's a choice you make every day. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get a chance to choose differently." People started reading, then sharing, then reaching out. The comment sections filled with women who'd lived similar stories. Some had been abandoned. Some had been the ones who left. Some were still trying to figure out which kind of person they were. Jennifer realized she'd built something unexpected, a community. The court date arrived on a cold November morning. Marcus showed up without his team of lawyers. Just one, a woman Jennifer didn't recognize. "My father's attorneys withdrew," he explained quietly to Patricia before the hearing. "Part of the disownment." The judge was a woman in her 60s named Helen Kowalski. She had the face of someone who'd seen every variety of human cruelty and had long since run out of patience for it. What happened in that courtroom wasn't what Jennifer expected. Marcus didn't fight. When asked about the abandonment, he admitted everything. When asked about the threats, he admitted those too. When asked what he wanted now, he said something that stunned the entire room. "I want to support my children, financially, and, if Jennifer allows it, in whatever other way I can. I don't deserve to be their father. I didn't earn that. But I'd like the chance to try." Judge Kowalski studied him for a long moment. "Mr. Sullivan, in my experience, men who abandon pregnant women don't usually come to court asking for the chance to do better. What changed?"
42 days, Marcus said quietly. That's how long my children fought for their lives in the NICU. I went once. Jennifer allowed me one visit, and I watched them through the glass. They're fighters. They got that from their mother. He took a breath. I spent my whole life being what my father wanted. When I saw those babies, I realized I had a choice. I could keep being his son, or I could try to be their father. I couldn't be both. The courtroom was silent. Judge Kowalski turned to Jennifer. Ms. Hart, what do you want?
Jennifer had prepared an answer. A speech about justice and accountability and the price of abandonment. But looking at Marcus, really looking at him for the first time since that night, she saw something she hadn't expected to see. Someone trying. I want my children to be provided for, she said slowly. I want their medical bills paid. I want support that reflects his income. I want college funds. She paused. And I want the option of supervised visitation, eventually. If he proves he means what he says. Patricia's head snapped toward her. Marcus's eyes widened. Jennifer, Patricia whispered. You don't have to, I know. Jennifer kept her voice steady. But my children are going to ask about their father someday. And I want to be able to tell them I gave him a chance, even if he didn't deserve one.
Judge Kowalski nodded slowly. The court finds in favor of Ms. Hart. Full child support calculated from date of conception. All medical expenses covered. College funds established. Supervised visitation may be petitioned for after a period of 6 months, pending psychological evaluation and parenting classes. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Sullivan, you've been given something rare, a second chance you didn't earn. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, Marcus approached Jennifer. Thank you, he said, for the chance. I won't. Don't thank me yet, she interrupted. You haven't proven anything. Words are easy. Showing up is harder. I know. And if you hurt them, ever, I will destroy you. Whatever's left of your reputation, your career, your life, I will burn it all down. I know that too. They stood there in the November cold, two people who'd been partners once, strangers now, trying to figure out what came next.
The blog, Marcus said suddenly. I've been reading it. Jennifer stiffened. And? It's good. Honest. He paused. You wrote about me. About trying to understand why I did what I did. Understanding isn't the same as forgiving. I know. But it's more than I deserved. He turned to go, then stopped. You're writing about choosing courage every day. That's what made me finally stand up to my father. Your words. So, thank you for giving me something I could learn from. He walked away before she could respond. Jennifer stood there for a long moment, uncertain how to feel. Carmen appeared at her elbow. You okay, Mika? I don't know, Jennifer admitted. I expected to feel victorious, but instead I just feel tired. That's because revenge is exhausting. Building something, that's where the energy comes from. Jennifer looked at her, this woman who'd survived things Jennifer couldn't imagine, who'd found reasons to keep going when everything said she should give up. How do you know so much? Carmen smiled, the gaps in her teeth showing. I've been at this longer than you, Nina. Made more mistakes, too. But I learned something along the way. You can't hate someone forever and build a life at the same time.
Takes too much energy. Eventually, you have to choose. Choose what? Choose to live. The next 4 years were the hardest and best of Jennifer's life. The blog kept growing. The book deal came through. The consulting firm expanded from 1 employee to 12. Marcus showed up for every supervised visit, every one. Even when Jennifer made them inconvenient. Even when she tested him with last-minute cancellations and rescheduling. He took the parenting classes, went to therapy, wrote letters to the twins that Jennifer kept but didn't share with them, not yet. He never asked for more than she offered, never pushed, never made demands. "I don't trust him," Jennifer told Patricia during one of their monthly dinners.
You don't have to trust him. You just have to give him room to prove himself. What if he's just playing a longer game? Then you'll know, and you'll deal with it. Patricia poured more wine. But Jennifer, consider this. What if he's actually changed? What if people can become better than their worst moment? That sounds like something you'd say about my blog. Because it's what you write every week. That people can choose differently. That courage is a daily practice. Why is it so hard to believe it might apply to him too? Jennifer didn't have an answer. The invitation to the Sullivan and Associates' 50th anniversary gala arrived when the twins were 5. Jennifer read it 3 times. Then she called Patricia. "He didn't send it," Patricia said after making some calls. "The event coordinators did. It's a general invitation to Extended Family Network. Someone in their database still has you listed from when you lived with him. So it's a mistake." "Probably, but..." Patricia paused. "You could go anyway. Show up looking like the successful woman you've become. Remind them what they threw away." The old Jennifer, the one who'd been sleeping in a car 5 years ago, would have jumped at the chance for revenge. But Jennifer wasn't that person anymore. Or was she? "I'll think about it," she said. She went. Of course she went. Bringing the twins was a last-minute decision, one she made after 3 glasses of wine and Carmen's gentle suggestion that maybe she was looking for a confrontation she didn't really need. "If you go alone," Carmen said, "you can walk away any time. If you bring those babies, you're making a statement." "What kind of statement?" "That's what you need to figure out." In the end, Jennifer brought them because she couldn't stand the thought of leaving them behind. Because they were the best thing about her, and she wanted the world to see. But standing in that ballroom now, watching Marcus's face drain of colour, she wasn't sure that had been the right choice. And here we are, full circle. Jennifer standing in the Sullivan and Associates ballroom, her children beside her, facing the man who had tried to erase them both. The room hummed with conversation and clinking glasses. 300 of Seattle's business elite mingled beneath those crystal chandeliers, unaware that they were about to witness something far more memorable than corporate celebration. Or were they? Jennifer looked around at the faces. Some she recognized from the blog, readers who'd reached out, shared their own stories, built a community around survival and second chances. Was that what this was about? Second chances? Or was she still the broken girl from 6 years ago, desperate for validation from people who'd never deserved the power to give it? Marcus was walking toward her. Victoria beside him, her face a mask of confusion and dawning concern. Patricia's hand touched Jennifer's elbow. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." "What do you mean, decide?" "The folder." Patricia lifted it slightly. "You came here with a plan. Expose him in front of everyone. Maximum humiliation. Justice served. That was the plan. Is it still?" Jennifer looked at her twins. Maya was watching the ice sculptures with fascination. Ethan was studying the crowd with his serious, watchful eyes. What did she want them to see? A mother who destroyed their father in public? A woman who couldn't let go of old rage? Or something else? Marcus reached them. Up close, she could see how much he'd aged. The grey at his temples, the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself, not with arrogance anymore, but with something that looked almost like humility. Jennifer. His voice was quiet, nervous. I didn't know you were coming. I was invited. I know. The coordinators. It was a database error. When I found out, I thought about calling you, but... He trailed off. I didn't know what to say. Victoria stepped forward, extending her hand. Hi, I'm Victoria. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time. Jennifer stared at her. You know who I am? Of course. Marcus told me everything. About the pregnancy, the abandonment, the court case. She looked at her husband with an expression that was hard to read, not anger exactly, but something complex. It took him 2 years to tell me the full truth. But he did tell me. Jennifer hadn't expected that. She'd expected to reveal Marcus's secrets to a wife who'd been kept in the dark. You knew, she said slowly. And you stayed with him. I married a flawed man who did something terrible and spent years trying to make up for it. Victoria's voice was steady. I'm not saying what he did was okay, but I've seen him work at becoming better. That matters to me. Marcus stepped forward. Jennifer, I know why you're here. I know what you came to do. And honestly, I'd understand if you did it. What are you talking about? The public confrontation, the exposure, humiliating me in front of everyone who thinks I'm a good man. He took a breath. I've imagined it 100 times. You standing up there, telling the whole room what I did, watching my reputation crumble. It's what I deserve. Jennifer's hand tightened on the folder. But before you do, Marcus continued, I want to say something. Not to convince you to stop, just because you deserve to hear it. Go ahead. I was a coward. I chose money over my children, safety over love, my father's approval over my own integrity. And the worst part is, I didn't even recognize what I was giving up until it was too late. He looked at Maya and Ethan, really looked at them, and his voice cracked. They're beautiful. They're perfect. And every time I see them, I think about how I almost wasn't there, how I chose not to be there. He turned back to Jennifer. You built something incredible. From nothing. From worse than nothing, from the rubble of what I left behind. You're a better person than I've ever been, or probably will be. He spread his hands. So do whatever you need to do. I won't fight you. I won't hide. Whatever justice looks like to you, I'll accept it. The ballroom was quieter now. People were watching, waiting. Jennifer thought about everything she'd planned, the folder in her hands, the documents that would destroy Marcus Sullivan's remaining reputation. She thought about the girl who'd slept in her car, crying into her steering wheel. She thought about the woman who'd built an empire from the ashes. And she thought about what Carmen had said. You can't hate someone forever and build a life at the same time. Jennifer opened the folder. Inside were the documents Patricia had prepared. Court records, financial statements, evidence of abandonment and neglect. She looked at them for a long moment. Then she closed the folder. I came here to destroy you, she said quietly, so only Marcus, Victoria, and Patricia could hear.
I spent months planning this. How I'd walk in, prove to everyone what you really are, watch you lose everything the way I once lost everything.
Marcus nodded. I know.
But here's the thing.
Jennifer looked at her children, then back at him.
I'm not that person anymore. I spent 5 years becoming someone new, someone who builds instead of destroys. And destroying you wouldn't make me feel powerful. It would make me feel like the scared, angry girl who had nothing left to lose.
She handed the folder to Patricia.
I don't need to expose you. You've already exposed yourself. To Victoria, to the people who matter, to your own conscience.
She took a breath.
And honestly, I don't want my children's first memory of public confrontation to be watching their mother take their father apart in front of a crowd.
Marcus's eyes were bright. Jennifer,
Don't thank me. This isn't forgiveness. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, but it's a choice. To be different than I was, to let go of something that was eating me alive.
She turned to leave, the twins in tow.
Wait.
It was Victoria.
Would you stay? Just for a little while? I'd like to get to know the woman Marcus should have been brave enough to stand by.
Jennifer hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave, to take her dignity and go. But Maya was tugging her sleeve.
Mummy, they have tiny cakes at the dessert table.
And Ethan was watching Marcus with something that wasn't quite hostility anymore. Curiosity, maybe.
1 hour,
Jennifer said.
and then we're getting real ice cream.
The twins were 10 when Marcus walked Maya down the aisle. Not for a real wedding. Maya was performing in a school play, a silly production of The Princess Bride, where she played Buttercup, and Marcus had been recruited to give her away in the wedding scene. Jennifer sat in the audience with Victoria, who had become something she'd never expected. A friend.
She's amazing,
Victoria whispered as Maya delivered her lines with perfect dramatic flair.
She gets it from her mother,
Jennifer said automatically.
She gets it from both her parents,
Victoria corrected gently.
Even the parts that came from learning what not to do.
Jennifer didn't argue. Over the years, she'd learned that family was more complicated than she'd once believed. That people could hurt you and grow. That forgiveness wasn't a moment, but a practice. That some wounds healed and some didn't, and both of those things could be true at the same time. Marcus caught her eye from the stage and smiled, tentative, grateful, still uncertain after all these years that he'd earned his place in their lives. Maybe he hadn't earned it. Maybe that wasn't the point. After the play, they all went for ice cream. Jennifer, the twins, Marcus, Victoria, Carmen, who had become an honorary grandmother, and Patricia, who had moved from lawyer to family friend. It was chaotic and loud and imperfect. It was, Jennifer realized, exactly the life she'd built. Not the life she'd imagined. Not the life she'd been denied. Something new. Something that contained all the broken pieces rearranged into a pattern that, against all odds, looked like hope. Maya grabbed her hand. "Mom, you're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Staring off into space and smiling like a weirdo." Jennifer laughed. "I'm just thinking about how far we've come." "From what?" "From sleeping in a car. From wondering if I'd survive. From wanting to destroy everyone who'd hurt me." "From a long time ago," Jennifer said. "Before you were born." "Was it bad?" "Some of it was the worst thing that ever happened to me." She squeezed Maya's hand. "And some of it gave me you." Maya considered this with the gravity of a 10-year-old philosopher. "So it was bad and good at the same time?"
Most things are, baby. Most things are. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Jennifer sat in her kitchen, her real kitchen, in her real house, and wrote. Not for the blog, not for the book, just for herself. I used to think there were two kinds of people, she wrote. The ones who hurt you and the ones who heal you. The villains and the heroes. I used to think Marcus was the villain and I was the hero. Now I think it's more complicated than that. We're all capable of being both, of hurting and healing, of abandoning and returning, of cowardice and courage. The difference isn't in who we are, it's in who we choose to become. Marcus chose wrong when it mattered most. He spent years living with that choice, letting it define him. And then he chose differently. Not because it was easy, but because he finally understood that the person he'd been wasn't the person he wanted to die as. And me? I chose rage for a long time. It kept me alive when nothing else would. But rage is a fire, and fires burn out or burn everything. I chose to stop burning. I chose to build. And in the end, that made all the difference. She closed the notebook. Through the window, the city lights glittered like the jewelry box Marcus had once promised her. But she didn't think about that anymore. The apartment, the promises, the betrayal, all of it felt distant now. Not erased, but smaller. Part of a story rather than the whole story. Jennifer Hart was a mother, an author, an entrepreneur, a survivor, and she was enough. She'd always been enough. The difference was, now she knew it.